Hello and welcome to our second session of working with Adobe Audition. This time we're going to work with Adobe Audition and doing what we call multi-track editing. So once again, I'm going to need you to open up Adobe Audition on your computer, and that is represented by the AU icon on your computer. Once again, if you can't find that on your computer and it's not downloaded, you can go to the little Creative Cloud icon, and as long as you're signed in with your Piedmont email and password, you should be able to open up Adobe Audition from there as well, and it will download on your computer. This screen should look familiar to you. It's what we worked with last week. If it doesn't look like this, make sure you go under your window and your workspace view and you set it to classic. And last week we were working in waveform. This week we're going to work in multi-track. And before I explain what multi-track editing is, I think it's easier if we just dive in and you could kind of see the different things you can do with it. So I click multi-track and right away it tells me a new multi-track session. This is similar to Premiere, whereas when we worked in the waveform editor and did linear editing, we didn't have to create a save file. But just like Premiere, when you're working with multi-track editing, it wants you to go ahead and create a save file. So I asked you to label it with your last name and then underscore audio 2 master, because last week was audio 1 master. And make sure you're saving it in a place where you know that you'll be able to find it. I created on my desktop last week Adobe Audition work. So that's where I'm going to save this. And I'll just hit OK. And now I have created my multi-track session file. If we go back to the Canvas page for the week, Audio Editing 2, you will see the handout that I am following this week step by step. It's a little more complicated than last week because it is multi-track editing. Of course, some helpful video links, as always, the Audition user guide directly from the Adobe website, and the files that we're going to be working with this week. I'm going to go ahead and download them, and they are now available on my computer under Audio 2 files. And you'll see here I'm working with a couple, I have rather 5 different files: Dennis Master, intro music, outro music, and then 2 sound effects files. The Dennis Master file is actually my final project from last week. Okay, if you recall, we edited a piece together last week using linear editing. This is exactly what that is. These other 4 files are new files that we're going to work with. So I'm going to go back to my Adobe Audition page, and I'm just going to shorten this window a little bit because instead of going under File and importing files that way, I feel it's just easier to just drag and drop. So I'm going to go ahead and take my Dennis Master and just drag and drop it into my first track here. And when I hit play,
Global Hand Washing Day is an international event held every
you can see right away it plays. So I have my master track in track 1. I'm going to drag my intro music track into track 2. And again, this alert will pop up. Please click don't show this alert again so it doesn't pop up all the time. And that is going to pop up here. I'm going to drag it all the way to the beginning, and I'm going to go ahead and hit play, and you'll see what we
Global
hear.
Hand Washing Day is an international event held every year.
Wow, that is a mess. So this intro music is the intro music that I want to play for my news story about Global Hand Washing Day. Obviously, how this sounds is it sounds really bad, right? This music is so loud that you can't even hear
To promote
what I'm saying. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to lower the audio of this. So here is my volume button for track 2. We did a little bit of this last week when we worked in Adobe Audition 1 to get one of the peaks down. I'm going to just drag it to the left, and I'm making my sound for this bed much lower. So let's see, I did it. We're just doing it using the air test here.
Global Hand Washing Day is an international event.
That's still a little loud for me, so I'm going to go even more. Let's try 16.8.
Global Hand Washing Day is an international event held every year in October.
Maybe even still a little loud. Let's go all the way to around 20-ish. And you don't have to hit it exactly where I'm at. Another thing you can do is just go in there, and if you know a certain decibel you want, you can just type that in. So I just typed in -20.
Global Hand Washing Day is an international event held every year in October to promote.
I think that's good. My voice is still very clear, and the music is at a low enough point where it's not super distracting. Now what I'm going to do is place this intro music and my master bed where I actually want it to be. I don't want it to play over the whole track, obviously, and I want this intro music, which sounds a little bit like a newsy type music. I want it to play on its own, and I want my voice to come in a little bit after this plays. So I'm going to go and just click on my track in track 1, move it a little bit to the left, and I want to find a place where it makes sense for me to cut in. So it wants the Adobe Audition kind of sense this would be a good place. Let's see how it works.
Global Hand Washing Day is an international event held.
I like that. I like that. It kind of locked it in there, but that way I'm coming in, we're letting the music come in just a little bit. Now I want to figure out where I want to end my second track. Again, this is an intro bed. If you look at the length of this clip, it looks like it's going throughout the entire clip, which is definitely not what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and click in track 2 here, and this is, you could see when you double click on it, what it does is it opens the waveform editor. If I go ahead and click multitrack, I'm back out here in the multitrack, but I'm going to go here and double click on this because what I want to do is I want to kind of find a place where I want this music to end. And I don't want it to end abruptly. I want it to fade out. So I want to find the place where I want it to completely end.
Global Hand Washing Day is an international event held every year in October.
Maybe
To promote proper hand washing.
I want it to end right here where I'm done with the opening sentence. So I'm going to go ahead and click here, and it opens up this waveform editor. And you notice this is brought in as a stereo file. If you want to, you can go ahead and convert it to mono, because I did emphasize that converting it to mono is a good idea. I'll go back to my multi-track file. If you recall, this is where I wanted it to cut out. So just so I can have this place when I double click here, that's where the red line is. I'm just going to go and wow, this is a long file. Select the rest of it, hit delete. It's warning me that this is part of a multi-track session, so it will delete in the multi-track session as well, which is exactly what I want it to do. So I'm going to hit OK. So now if I go back to multi-track, you can see here the music ends right where I want it
For
to.
hand washing. Dr. Julia Schmidt.
But obviously, that does not sound good.
Proper hand washing.
And that's because we don't want the music to just abruptly cut like that. What we really want to happen is we want the music to fade out. So here I'm going to show you some of the effects in Adobe Premiere that you can use, specifically the fade out effect. So I'm going to go ahead and click back on my track 2 audio, and I want to figure out a place where I want my audio to start fading. And this looks like a good place in the music. It's not an exact science. I'm just going to highlight from where I want it to start fading to the very end of the track. And what I need to do is go to favorites, and you'll see a fade out option. So this means the music will fade out here. I'll go back to click on multi-track and let's see how this sounds.
Held every year in October to promote proper hand washing. Dr. Julie.
You know what? I actually think I want it to start fading out a little sooner because I still feel this is a little abrupt. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to undo my fade and let's start fading it out right here. Okay. So I'll just highlight it. I'll do fade out and we'll see how this sounds, if it sounds any better. I'm going to move my scrubber so I could hear the whole thing.
Global Hand Washing Day is an international event held every year in October to promote proper hand washing. Dr. Julia Schmidt.
I like that a lot better. It's not an exact science what we're doing here. When you're working with audio tracks, especially for stuff like this, like news reports, you just got to play it by ear. Everyone's will be a little bit different, which is, by the way, how I also know if you're cheating, if everyone has the exact same thing. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my outro music bed. So if in my files, I have outro music. I'm going to go ahead and drag this into track 3. Okay. You see it comes in as a stereo file. I'm going to go ahead and make that mono. So I'll just do convert to mono, go back to multi-track, and I want to figure out where I want this to start playing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my scrubber all the way to the end. You can see here I'm zoomed in pretty tightly, so I definitely would like to zoom out a little bit. So because I kind of want to see my whole project here. And there now I can see my track 3 stuff. We see where the end of the video is. Whoops, I accidentally dragged it into track 4. I want to keep it in track 3. And I want to figure out where I want this to start playing.
Reporting for Z98.7 FM, the student-run radio station at Piedmont University, I'm Joe Dennis.
So you can kind of hear how this has a really cool ending. Unlike the intro, we don't need to cut anything off of this, but we do need to figure out where we want this to place. And I kind of like it ending with that cool little envelope it has at the end here. So let's listen to this. Don't worry about the level right now.
University, I'm Joe Dennis.
All right. What I'm going to do is now I want to go ahead and work on the level of this, which we know was super high. So I'm going to go back to my fader here, and I'm going to go, the last one I think we did -10. Let's do -15 for this one. And let's see how that works.
For Z98.7 FM, the student-run radio station at Piedmont University, I'm Joe Dennis.
I think that sounds good, but it's still a little hot when it starts and a little tough to hear. So instead of doing a fade out here, I want to do a little fade in effect. Okay, so I'm going to highlight to about here. Again, not an exact science. And I'm going to do my fade in effect. And we'll go back to multi-track and let's see how this sounds. I'll take my scrubber here.
Experts say 20 seconds is best when washing hands. Reporting for Z98.7 FM, the student-run radio station at Piedmont University, I'm Joe Dennis.
Bam! Doesn't that sound beautiful? By the way, if you feel good when you're editing and you feel like, wow, this sounds great, then this might be a good career for you, because I still get that pride that I did back when I was in college and made a perfect edit. So I got my intro, I got my outro. We're not done yet because I have a couple sound effects that I want to add in here. I have wash hands and I have sanitizer. She talks about washing her hands and she talks about using sanitizer. So for these, I want to, of course, put them in the appropriate place. So we got to find when Dr. Schmidt starts talking about washing hands.
Certain areas.
Probably the most often cases where things are being left is your knuckles and the cracks underneath your nails, around your nail beds. If you have any rings or jewelry.
So she's talking about how when people are washing their hands there and about scrubbing. So this is where I want this effect to be. Probably we'll put it.
Areas.
Probably the most often cases.
Let's try to start it here. We might move it. And for this, I don't need a whole new track to put this wash hands effect because you'll notice I didn't use track 3 right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this in track 3. And I wanted it to start right on that red. So let's see how this sounds.
Probably the most often cases where things are being left is your knuckles and the cracks underneath your nails, around your nail beds. If you have any rings or jewelry on, that's a place where things get left behind. And you want to make sure that you're getting your thumbs.
Okay, and I definitely want it to stop before my voice comes in. So I'm going to go ahead and just bring this in a little bit to end it there. And now I want to check on the volume of my sound effect.
Where things are being left is your knuckles and the cracks underneath your nails.
I think that sounds good.
Nails, around your nail beds.
And then the other piece of audio we want to use is hand sanitizer. She talks about washing hands is better. Let's see here.
No hand sanitizer is good as a last resort. Dr. Schmidt says hand washing with soap is always a better choice to kill viruses.
Soap is going to be better. The difference is that hand sanitizer uses alcohol, whereas soap.
So this is where she says hand sanitizer uses alcohol.
Where uses alcohol. Is that hand.
So I kind of like it right here. I'll go ahead and drag in my hand sanitizer effect right here. And let's see how that sounds. Again, I want it, I see my peak there. See the little peak there? I want that to be on the red line, like that.
Hand sanitizer uses alcohol, whereas soap basically has some oils in it, but it also has an alkaline base salt in it. Soap is a surfactant. It can break water tension.
And let's end it right there. So I'll just go ahead and drag this in here.
Experts say 20 seconds is best.
Perfect. So I got in my 2 sound effects. I imported them there. Now I feel like my piece is done. I'm happy with it. So saving it is a little bit different than saving it when we work in waveform editing. First of all, I do recommend saving it. So just do a quick save and you could click yes here and you could click yes to all. Okay. And what this does is it creates a file called Dennis Audio to master.sesx, which is a session. Okay. And the biggest mistake a lot of people make is this is what they upload into Canvas. This is nothing. This will only work if you open it in Adobe Audition and if you open it where all your files are. So even if you upload this, even though I have Adobe Audition, none of the files are going to come through because you saved the files on your computer. So what you need to do, just like in Adobe Premiere, how you have to export it as a video file, as an MP4, what we want to do here is we want to export. Difference is what we do first is we save it, and instead of, we already saved the session so we can go back and edit it. Sorry. What we want to do is go to File, and we want to export it, and we want to export it as a multi-track mix down. We want to do the entire session. Make sure you don't do time selection or selected clips because that won't give you everything. We want the entire session. Click on that, and you can see here it's Dennis Audio to Master. It adds mixdown.wave. I want it as an MP3, not as a wave file because MP3 is more universal. I'll click OK, and it takes a minute, and it saves your entire audio to master file as an MP3. So saving it as a session is good because it means you can go back on the computer you were working on if you needed to make another edit or additional edits. It will open it up like this, but it does nothing like if you want to play it on the radio or if you want to submit it for an assignment, because I won't be able to open it. So what you need to do is you need to export it, just like we did in Adobe Premiere when we exported it as an MP4. We want to export it as a multi-track mixdown, okay? And that means it's taking all these files and compressing them into one file. You want to make sure you click on entire session so it does everything on your screen and not just what's selected, for example. And it gives you here how it's going to save it. The location has, for some reason, changed. For me, I wanted to save it. I created that folder on my desktop, Adobe Audition work. And I want to save it as Dennis Audio 2 Master. And you can see here it says mixdown.mp3. I want my file format to be MP3 in case yours says WAV. And I'll go ahead and click Save. And now I hit OK. And when I look into my Dennis Audio 2 Master file, this is what saved. And let's just give a quick listen to it to make sure this is what we want.
Global Hand Washing Day is an international event.
Sounds good.
Underneath your nails, around your nail bed.
You could hear the little sound effect there.
I'm Joe Dennis.
Now I'm ready to save this file. But before I save, there's one thing that I forgot to mention that I want to go back to. You see how my track 2, remember that intro bed, how long it was? If I go ahead and save this, it's going to save as a 2-minute and 30-second file because Adobe sees that, oh, this goes all the way out, even though there's no sound here or anything. So what I want to do is go ahead and take the edge of my track 2 and go ahead and just bring it in a little bit. So now Adobe can tell, okay, this file is only, what is this? Roughly 1 minute and 16 seconds long, 15.9. When I'm ready to save, there's 2 ways to save this. We're kind of back to where we were with Adobe Premiere. When we did a waveform, it was real easy. You just click Save As MP3, find your location that you want to save it, and you're done. Here, we want to go ahead and we do want to save it as a session, okay? Because that way, if you want to make additional edits, if you're not done with the project, you can go back and open it on the computer you were working on. It will find all the other files. So here there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different files that you're working with, and it will put them all together in a session. But if you go ahead and just save it as a session and turn that into me, I won't be able to open it. Even though I have Adobe Audition, it's going to open it and say, hey, where are these 5 files? Those 5 files aren't here. Same concept with Adobe Premiere when we exported things as an MP4. So I want to go to File and Export, Multitrack Mixdown. I want to do my entire session. And you can see here it's saving in the location that I want it to save. And I'm going to hit Replace. And you want to make sure you're saving it in the MP3 format. So if it's WAV, you want to make sure you change that. And you can see the file name, Dennis Audio 2 Master Mixdown. I'm just going to change this to Audio 2 Master Final. It doesn't matter what you save it as. And I'll hit OK. And you can see here my Dennis Audio 2 Master Final is available. I'll click on it and I just want to play it to make sure it sounds like how I want it to sound like.
Global Hand Washing Day is an international event held every year in October to promote proper hand washing. Dr. Julia Schmitz, an associate biology professor at Piedmont University, wants Piedmont students to recognize that when they wash their hands, they are likely missing certain areas.
Probably the most often cases where things are being left.
So we hear the sound effect, the intro music sounded good. Let's see that other sound
So
effect.
it basically has some oils in it, but it also
There we hear that sound effect. Let's see how the outro sounds.
Reporting for Z98.7 FM, the student-run radio station at Piedmont University, I'm Joe Dennis.
Sounds good. So this is what you will want to submit in your Canvas file on the assignment submission page, and we're done. Kudos. That's as far as we're going with Adobe Audition for this Foundations of Media Technology class. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.